Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are in Parshat Shemini this week in the book of Leviticus. And there's a very famous moment in this week's Parsha where Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's sons, are consumed by God's fire for bringing this Eish Zara to God. And I was reminded of the fire that Moses encounters in the beginning of his journey with God, that fire, that thorn bush in the hills and the mountains as he is with his flock. And I was reminded of the fact that God calls Moses 2 times in Exodus chapter 3, verse 4, saying, Moshe, Moshe. Moses, who did not have any desire to be called by God, who asks God to find somebody else, nevertheless comes close to God, so close that he removes his sandals and he is not consumed by this fire. Nadav and Avihu, on the other hand, the rabbis teach us in one interpretation, are filled with love towards the divine, and they want to come near to God. Perhaps they were inspired by their father and their uncle, or maybe this was a spirit that was inside of them from the time that they were born. They want to be so close to God that they move nearer to God, who, the commentator Or HaChaim says, is like a raging fire. They are not called even once, and they are struck down. Both Moshe and Nadav and Avihu clearly have an awareness of the divine, but where Moshe has no desire at first to be called by God, to encounter God, Nadav and Avihu's very names indicate their willingness. Nadav means willing, and Avihu means he is my father, which is understood to mean God is my father. And this is a strange text to be reading in the shadow of Yom HaShoa, when so many were consumed by a fire that they neither sought nor wanted, a strange fire that was not of God. I was struck in particular by the moment right after Nadav and Avihu are consumed in our Parsha, the moment after their death, when Moshe turns to Aaron after the death of Aaron's sons, and he says, "This is what the Lord meant when God said, 'Through those near to me I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people.'" And Aaron is silent. In this moment, Moses really shows how maladept he is, and where Aaron is silent, Rashi and Rashbam, medieval commentators, rush in, they jump in, and they say, Rashi says, where did God say that? This thing that Moshe is quoting, where did God say that? And Rashbam says, could God really have told Moses, make for me a tabernacle, and on the day that it's built, your greatest people will die? Effectively, they're saying, what are you talking about, Moses? Why would you say something like that? And they rush to find a reason why someone like Moshe would say something like that. Moses, who is someone who is able to speak to God, to speak to the people, to bring down judgments that are just, someone who is humble. And they really search out. They find a verse that is similar to the verse that to what he's saying. They talk about how, no, it really means that everyone's going to be so moved by Aaron's continued service that that's how God's glory will be brought about. But the truth of the matter is, Aaron's silence here is more powerful at this moment than anything that Moses could have said. In Pirkei Avot, in the first chapter in the 17th Mishnah, we read, Shimon beno Omer, Kol yemei gadalti ben hachachamim, velo matzati laguf tov ela shtika. Shimon, his son, says, all my days I grew up among the sages, and I did not find anything better for the body except silence. Velo hamidrash hu ha'ikar, and the exposition of the Torah is not that which is essential, ela hama'aseh, but rather action. V'chol hamarbe dvarim mevi chet, and whoever increases words brings sin. Seems like a bit of an indictment of what Moshe is doing in this moment. And Abarbanel, the 15th century Portuguese commentator, comes in and says, well, hang on a second. The flaws in this Mishnah are obvious. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel teaches us that there is nothing better than silence, but isn't it true that in intellectual discussions, in intellectual circles, discussions and argumentation and rebuttals and persuasion are the essence of dialogue? Presentation and rebuttal are essential for intellectual debate. And the only thing that differentiates us from animals is our ability to speak. So how could Rabban Shimon even have thought that silence is a virtue at all, let alone the greatest thing? And in response to that, we can move a few centuries back to the 11th century to hear what Rabbi Shlomo ibn Gabirol has to say. And he says, in seeking wisdom, the first step is silence, the second, listening, the third, remembering, the fourth, practicing, and the fifth, teaching others. When we think about the history of Holocaust education, we think about some of the first generation of survivors, many of whom did not speak about their experiences at all. We call to mind those today and in generations past who were too stunned after learning about the atrocities which took place in the Holocaust and the things that happened to their loved ones to enter into any kind of discussion or conversation or debate. We remember to listen, to practice slowing down enough to really hear those stories, even if we've heard stories about the Holocaust again and again. And we teach others about the value and the beauty of the lives that were cut short and the things that made it possible for these atrocities to take place. May the memories of those who survived and those who perished in the Holocaust be for a blessing, and may we continue to listen as much as we speak. This Sunday, we'll have an opportunity with the HLC to commemorate Yom HaShoah, and I hope to see you there. Shabbat Shalom.